Okay. Um, I'm going to tell you everything that I have learned about the testimonial collection process and the kind of overall concept of social proof. This training, this webinar is going to start quite theoretical and talk about the reasons why this is important, and that if you're basically, for any business, that you need to take this really seriously. And actually, something you said, and I might ask you the same question again in a moment, of why you're personally interested in this, because there are a few reasons. But I do believe everyone should be interested, and it can be a really powerful addition to anyone's business. So, what can I ask you first? Why are you personally interested and excited about this principle?
Because our business is very much about people and products, and testimonials tie those two together really nicely. We are all about customers and finding out what their issues are and helping them to solve it. So by having testimonials and by working with customers to understand what it is initially are their issues, we can help them to solve them. And that in turn will develop relationships and improve the reorder part of our business.
Yeah, very succinctly put. And this is really the first point, that people, I think, sometimes interchangeably use the two phrases, testimonials and social proof, but the testimonial is the asset that actually provides that social proof. And the social proof, as we'll explore through these next few slides, are about how you can showcase your product or service to other people. The testimonial itself is an asset, and an asset is something that continues to provide you value over time. And that's a very important point, that if you can build a system that collects, that identifies, collects, produces, and is able to present an asset that will gain you sales and give you a lot back over time, that's what's going to give you social proof, but social proof that's actually going to gain a lot of momentum the more you get, and the more powerful, the more time that goes on. So assets get more valuable over time. So five reasons why I think people should be really taking this very seriously. There is actually this belief, this idea that once you've got enough, and if you could break down any business into a certain number of products or a certain kind of tiered level of service, but once you've got enough testimonials for each element of your business that you've broken it down to, you could be set for life, because you could end up creating a testimonial for lots of different types of people. We'll come back to that in a minute. But you would then be able to reuse those testimonials over and over again, and you'd never have to do any direct marketing. You kind of let this do it all for you. So there is that idea, not that you would necessarily stop this process, but I think that understanding is really, really valuable. Testimonials, one of the reasons why this is powerful, social proof harnesses the fear of missing out. Because when you have a story that says, this is where I started, and you were talking about problem solving earlier, which is spot on. I had this problem, and then I used this product or this service, and that was my solution. And now I'm feeling amazing. When people are reading that, there's this element of jealousy almost, like I want that result as well. And if you can produce it in the right way, then you'll have people really wanting that. They'll feel kind of left out. And then we all know that feeling of the fear of missing out is quite a powerful motivator. We want to harness that and use that to one of the best ability we can if we want to market and sell our products really and services really effectively. These next two ideas go hand in hand. We've got giving the pricing power as well as business growth. And I'm just going to start on this one. The business growth, obviously, the whole premise here is that you get lots of testimonials for your products and services, you use them, and that gets you more sales so that you can, as you say, keep the same customers coming back to buy more and get new customers. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what growth is. But it also gives you some pricing power. And in some businesses, when you get to a certain level of demand, driven by these amazingly powerful testimonials, you might decide to produce some kind of limiting cap on the provision of some of the products and services you sell. And as soon as you have demand on any product or service, you've got pricing power. That means you can put the price up because you've got a lot of people that want it. And really, this is an ode to how valuable great testimonials and a wide range of testimonials can make your product. You actually make it more valuable by drawing more attention to it and making more people want it. Really amazing principles. This statement here is kind of marketing 101, and it's what you're able to do if you can capture, and you can think of an example. Anyone watching this right now thinks of one of the clients they've got at the moment that they're working with who's absolutely loving the product and they're getting some great results, and they want to capture that positivity. What a well-produced and well-captured testimonial of that person that you've got in your mind will do is attract people like that, with those problems, of those demographics, of that kind of person, to want that exact same solution. And by getting, I mentioned this earlier, by getting lots of different testimonials from different people, but maybe on the same product, you can actually end up attracting like-minded people. Because the way our mind works is that when we see a result that someone else is getting and we relate ourselves to the person in that testimonial, we'll feel like we can get the same solution. It's like, yeah, that person's just like me. They're in the same boat, the same position. So therefore, the solution that they found might work for me too. And why developing a machine of getting lots of different kind of types of testimonies from different people will serve you in the long run. That whole kind of catalog, if you like, will serve you really, really well. This is like the something I put together, which is the kind of the life cycle of the process and how it works. And it really highlights one particular element of it, which we're going to make really practical in a moment. A sale happens, or maybe a sale has happened. Then the product or service needs to be implemented. So they purchase, so they buy personal training, or they buy a nutritional consult, or they'll buy a beauty or a skin product. And they'll then need to use it. They'll need to make use of that thing they've just bought. Because if they don't do that, they won't get a result. And if they don't get a result, you're not getting a testimonial, which doesn't provide you with any social proof. No social proof leads to no sales. But if we flip it again, you make a sale, and then if you have a process for your product and service to be well implemented, and you make sure that what you promised them, your client, you fulfill. That if you said that this product is going to make your skin feel amazing, or if this personal training package is going to lose you weight or transform your posture, you first need to make sure that it does. Because if it doesn't, you've nowhere else to go. So the implementation is key. And that's actually kind of part of the testimonial gathering process, which I'll come back to. If you implement it properly and you've got a good product or service, you get a result. Then you harness that result, you turn it into a testimonial. That testimonial gives you social proof, which you use in your marketing efforts, and then that makes more sales, and so on and so forth. Make more sales on new products and services, you implement well, have a system to track the implementation, they drive results, and so on. And this is a really great model, but I think what it then highlights is the implementation. And that takes a start to get starting now to get a bit more practical. Priming your client in a few words means telling them up front, I am going to ask you to talk about me and the product and service that I'm delivering when we've implemented and I've fulfilled the promise that I've made to you by selling you this thing. And this is going to be how you actually introduce the idea of it. And it's where you start with this sandwich approach of saying, to give you a little script as an example, you would say, great, I'm so pleased you've just bought this thing. It's my first priority to make sure that you fully make the full use of this product or service. And I want to make sure that you've got all the information, all the support you need to do so. If you have any questions, I want you to come to me directly. I don't want you worrying or being concerned about how to do this, right? And by taking away all that worry and concern, you're facilitating the correct implementation of that thing that you've just sold. But that's the first part of the sandwich. And then the middle part is you say, now what I hope, what I envisage, and I'm confident this will happen, is that I want you to be so happy with the results that we get here that you feel very happy to talk about this with your friends and your family and anyone you think might benefit from what we're about to go through. However, and to finish off the sandwich, my first priority is you. And I'm not expecting anything. You should not be talking about me necessarily until we've really satisfied what we've come here to do. And what that does, that process of priming, is it puts your reputation on the line. It puts you out there and says, look, I'm here to fulfill this promise that I made to you. I didn't just sell this thing and then run a mile. I said, look, I sold this thing in confidence that I can genuinely help you with this problem that you've raised, as you mentioned earlier. And therefore, I'm going to put myself on the line for that. But actually, I'm also going to say I'm doing so with the view that I'm going to get something in return when I fulfill my promise. Cool. So that's priming. You'll see as well later when I show you the simple document that I have people kind of start this process of testimonial collection, and that it's so important to capture the emotion. And if you sell right, you would have been able to, you would understand what negative emotions your client, your new client, has felt or is feeling that you want to get them away from. And so for me, being in personal training, one example is if I take embarrassment. So being embarrassed of your body and what state you've let it get into is a very common thing that charges the motivation to seek someone's help, like a personal trainer. And if I can understand my client and really empathize with their embarrassment and why they feel that way about their body, help them overcome that with all the things that I do in my coaching process. And I can lead them to a place of pride with their body, and where they're really happy and confident to showcase it and be happy in themselves internally about what they've created. What I've done is I've captured the emotional journey. And so at the beginning of the process, it's really important to understand where am I starting from emotionally as well as practically. So maybe, I don't know if anything comes into your head now, because if we take a very different example in beauty products, right, or skin products, can I ask you, what's the negative emotion that people feel at the stage when they're considering and they're buying into the products that you sell?
It can be very similar to PT, I guess, in that sometimes it's embarrassment that they've got a certain skin issue, maybe it's spots or blemishes, and that has a direct impact on how they feel in terms of self-confidence. So, yeah. Confidence
is really another very common one. And I think what people find is that when you start exploring different industries and different products and services, it all boils down to the same bunch of negative emotions. That, we're in the people industry. We're about helping people feel better about themselves and their bodies. So if we can change how people feel about that and capture where we're going from, where we're going to, that's going to help you form a great story, which really comes in a few slides' time, that people will connect to. So yeah, it's capturing the emotions really important. Strike while the iron's hot. People are most receptive when they are motivated to get the result and they're seeing that results are coming. So an active management of your client's implementation of your product or service is really crucial. If you try and do it way after it's done, they've kind of gone through that roller coaster of that journey where they're super excited, and they've kind of dropped down to this kind of level of normality. There's this concept in psychology called the hedonic treadmill, which basically means everyone has a base layer or a kind of a maintenance level of happiness, of emotion. But when we go through big things in life, it might peak or it might trough quite dramatically, but it always comes back to the same level. And so when you go, say someone's got this problem and they're in this trough, they're in this bad place negatively, and then you present yourself as a solution to their problems, and then they get excited because they can see with your testimonials, or they can see with your product that this could be the answer to my prayers. And so they're now motivated because they're like, cool, I can start to see that this might be the answer. That's the moment that we need to jump in and take them through our testimonial process, because they're going to be really receptive because they're listening to you. They're like, you're my savior right now. You're the one that's going to present me the solution. So timeliness is really important, and hence the phrase strike the iron when it's hot. Okay, telling a story. If we can, this is a really important point with regards to managing your own ego. Everyone has an ego because, I'm the same. I get a rush when I make a sale. Everyone does. It's this dopamine, this kind of satisfaction and validation that I'm doing a good job for other people. But we mustn't be distracted by the fact that we need to focus on our client and make them the hero in a story. And if we think we've kind of placed them in time, and if you can always relate this to a book or a film that you watch, like generally speaking, you've got this main character and there's a moment in the movie or the book where things are really bad, and it's you're not quite sure how they're going to get out of this rut, and then something happens, that a moment of inspiration or a moment of kind of self-development and realization that, wow, there is a solution to this, and then a bit of a struggle, and then there's this kind of like winning moment at the end, typically, where they're the hero and they've overcome their obstacles. If you can approach the gathering process and collect the information, ask the questions with that idea in mind of, I want to create a story about this person and put them on a pedestal, you'll create a story that new clients will relate to. Because we've been telling stories for a long time, and people really connect to stories. And when there's this, a lovely, I think a really nice succinct representation of social proof, that when you try and sell your product, it's sales or it's marketing. But when others tell the story for you, it's social proof, and people buy into it straight away. So if you stand up and say, hey, I've got this great product, people are like, oh, someone's selling me something again. Whereas if you say, hey, I'd like to tell you about Jane and the time where she was really embarrassed and struggling with her body, and she had this, but actually she managed to overcome it with some really key things, but and here's what she did. Immediately you can understand that the first example, I switch off straight away. That's someone just monologuing at me. Whereas the second one is like, oh, I want to learn about Jane. That's a story I can connect with. So yeah, stories are really key. People need a nudge is a reminder that a lot of people are modest, and the industry we're in if we call the industry the betterment of people and their bodies and their health, they can be quite sensitive subjects. You talk about skin issues. Not a lot of people want to showcase their skin, and that's the issue. So, trying to get people to talk about it, let alone take photos and videos of it, can be quite challenging. Add to the fact that generally people are modest, and maybe when they have done something really well, they have put a lot of effort and they have ridden like negative and a challenging time emotionally and physically, maybe, that they're not going to be the first ones to speak out about it. But if we give them the permission and B, the process to be able to say, look, I really want to document this so that we can celebrate together, and that you can look back in 3 months' time and see how far you've come. You're first and foremost, you're going to really benefit from it. And so having this process to actually get it out of them is crucial, because if you're sitting there expecting them to write up a wonderful testimonial without any guidelines, it's not going to happen. Cool. So at this stage, I'm going to jump into an example that I've done. And if I can just jump out of this and onto this document here. Okay. This is an example of a document that I use to track the journey of the coaches, or the professionals that I mentor. So I will basically, my role here to kind of contextualize this would be to document someone at the beginning in their business. Generally, they're not happy because they're not earning enough money. They're spending way too much time. They're confused, overwhelmed, frustrated with their results. And I come in as their mentor and say, right, let's distill down what we need to do. Let's create some focus. Let's clarify your goals, and let's put some action steps in place that are going to get you into a much better place with your business. Earn more money in less time in a more structured way so you can live a better life. What I will do, this document is really simple, and I think this, just before I kind of go into it in a bit more detail, I don't want to overcomplicate it for a very specific reason. And really, for anyone watching this and for you to think, okay, obviously you're going to try and relate this to your specific product and your specific business, service business. What I'm doing here is I'm introducing this document to someone the moment I start officially working with them. So they've bought into my services, and the very first meeting is part of kind of the initiation process of, this is what's going to happen. I'm almost giving them the plan of action that's about to follow, and the steps that they're going to need to take and that I'm going to be taking to make sure that the service they've just bought into is implemented correctly, so I can fulfill the promise I made when they bought into me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit down and say, right, this is what's going to happen. And this is one part of that. Of course, this is just the collection process I'm showing you. But as you will with your business, you'll have a series of steps that you need your client to take in order for them to make the most of the product she's bought. so, you know, with personal training, a personal training client could be the same. Like, okay, you need to go and download these apps. I need you to do these workouts once every other day. I need you to eat this many carbs. I need you to do that stretch. And you kind of say, right, this is going to be challenging. And you can't start mapping it all out. This is what happens in the first session or 2 or 3 of the service business, or what might happen in the kind of enrollment of a product, whether it's physical or digital. And this first, as you can see, this document here is really simple. It's 2 pages. And I've got the first box here, which is the beginning. And then I've got a progress update. And this kind of idea of before and after in text is where we start. Largely because for my service, for this example, it's difficult to image the difference between embarrassment to elation and satisfaction. Now, if you're going to do a physical change like skin or like a body shape or body size, then you would have a structured process on how to capture that. So, for example, once you've gone through the process, the final step would be, and if you're happy, I would like for you to take a picture in good light, and you would have guidelines of this area of the body or of whatever it is that we're looking to make a change in. And that would be listed in this document as well. But this process, I believe, basically helps to capture the emotion to help you tell a story. And you then can capture the emotion of the images separately. So this basically just said, look, describe where you are now. Okay, describe practically what do you do, and this is more of an income-based thing. So I would ask them to tell me what they're earning, and where are you at mentally and emotionally. You could change business for body. How are you? Where are you at with your emotionally with your business? And you have people write down things that maybe you would have never got in a conversation because maybe you don't know this person that well yet. But if you have them document this process for all the reasons that I've explained today, in this session, you'll get words like embarrassment, like upset, like I'm down and disappointed, and you'll kind of pick out these words which begin to form the construct of your story. And then you get into this kind of question: how is it going to impact your life? People have bought into this. People wouldn't have exchanged money for this thing if they didn't think it was going to affect them positively in some way. And if you can capture that first bit, when you come to the next bit, which is a progress update, and I quite deliberately didn't say the end or final, because you don't know what's going to come. There might be more challenges along the way. There might be other things that crop up, and you're going to have to be flexible enough to react to that. But what you would then do is say to this person at a later date, based on whatever they bought into, we're going to come back to this, and I'm going to ask you to write down where you are in that moment. And then what they'll be able to do is look back and go, wow, God, and they'll read what they wrote a month ago, a week ago, whatever it was. And they'll say, oh, I'm actually in a very different place now. And they'll write down where they are. And what you can then do is you then would essentially ask for permission to use this. And you could say, right, well, I'm just going to turn this into a story. And then you can either take cuts of you can take quotes from it. You can then bring it into a story by just adding prose around it to make it read a bit better. And then obviously get there okay with it. You're not going to change what they said, but you're just going to organize it in a way that reads well. And then what would follow is you would then take a picture and say, great, would you take a picture of the arm, the body, the whatever, where it is now, ensuring that you've given them good enough guidelines to follow to get good quality images. And then it's a case of your post-production task to put it all together in a way that fits your brand and that matches the way you want to present that information, whether it's now a video, and I'll come back to video in a second, but if you want to present it in an image, in a slideshow, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is you want, the way you want to present that, or whether it's an email, you can then put it all together later. My point today is not really to talk about design, but you've now got the raw materials to put together your story. Video is an interesting one as well, because what this allows you to do is once they've filled this out, you can then later arrange a video call with them, which you would probably call something like a success story phone call, or again, a progress update. And I've done several of these. I've got a couple booked in soon for some guys and girls that are getting some great results at the moment. And they filled in the beginning. They're going to fill in the end when the results are in. And then I'll say, great. Now, as soon as they've done the end one, I'll book a video call with them, and it'll probably just be on Zoom. And I'll record it, and I'll basically say, tell me where you were when we started. Whether or not they've got this document open, they've already created the words. So now it's going to flow. It's going to be quite smooth, and they're going to naturally pick out the words that they've already got out of their head. Because this process for them is about getting the words out of their mind that they have thought for a long time probably, but have never said, never verbalized, they've never got it out. But this process got it onto a document. And the same token, exactly the same thing happened here. You've got them to outwardly admit the positive journey they've been on. And when you say, okay, cool, tell us where you are now, they're going to repeat all those positive phrases. And in one video, by you asking 2 questions, you're going to have this before and after, this transformation, this story, the hero that they are in it. And you're just saying, I want to just showcase your story. And by the end of it, you can just say, look, I'm really pleased, and you're going to wrap up and probably kind of wrap it up by saying how pleased you are to be part of their process, to be part of their story, and to have a helping hand in some way to help them go from point A to point B, from pain to pleasure, from frustration to joy, whatever that transformation has been. Because deep down, yes, we all have a business objective. We want more sales. That's where we started. But there's also going to be an underlying emotion that we want significance as the profession that we are. That we get a kick out of seeing that transformation, and that's going to be a joyous process for you to do as well. And if you do all this right and you prepare and implement it in the right way, you're going to get some wonderful assets.
Brilliant.
So that concludes. Questions, thoughts, anything you'd like me to go back on?
No, it's all really clear so far.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up there then, and again, this document I will make available almost to use as a template. So if that's helpful, and obviously the slideshow will be accessible as well. But I'm going to wrap up there.
I guess the only thing just to ask very quickly actually before you do is, have you? I mean, obviously PT and skincare changes are different, but have you got a certain period of time that you normally use for your progress update? And presumably you can have, a 2-week progress update and then maybe a 2-month progress update before you reach your final success story when you think you're in that position. Any advice on what length of time is the right sort of thing to go with?
Yeah. The first thing is each promise that's made relative to a service or product is going to be different based on the size and the magnitude of the problem you're solving. That will in turn impact both how long it is before you're going to see a result, as well as how frequently you might need to be checking in. Now, that takes me on to the second point, which is this will bring about a process, like a system that an individual needs if you're running a business, to actually check in with the clients that are on said programs or have opted into certain products and services. And what I would be doing is having a very simple but very regular and consistent check-in process where you're kind of checking in and saying how you're getting on. And it could be that simple. It could be a WhatsApp, a text, or an email that just says, just want to check in, how's it going? And if you're going to get signs that, oh, it's amazing, I'm feeling really good. And that might be like, oh, cool, okay, well, let's schedule a call and I just want to jump on with you and just listen to you and see how it's going. And that might guide you to jump in a bit sooner. But I guess the point is I can't give you a black and white answer like every one or 2 weeks, because some are going to happen a lot quicker. But I guess what I am saying that's practical is I would recommend that you build a regular check-in process with all of the people from whom you anticipate getting a testimonial, and just having that little check-in and saying, where are you, like you're thinking, where are you at in the process? And if they're getting good results, you want to make sure that they've documented the first, if they haven't done it already, and that you're kind of anticipating saying, great, well, okay, it sounds like you're like 75% the way there. So, you've just got a little bit more to go. So let's schedule it for a few days' time. Or you might be like, okay, it sounds like your kind of progress is quite slow. Maybe I need to check in with you and make sure you're doing it right. Are you doing all the things that we initially agreed, or have you forgotten some or got lazy on some things that I said? And so it is an active process. Like this goes back to the implementation point. If you want to get a result, you need to ensure that those things that needed to be done to get the result are happening. And, depending upon what products and service you're delivering, I don't know how much implementation is involved in it, because it could be a low price thing. But if you personally want the testimonial, you're going to have to put a bit more in, knowing that if I get this testimonial, it's going to lead to a lot more sales, and it's going to lead to me a lot more income than that one sale itself. So I will almost select this person and say, I'm going to be checking in with you quite regularly, because you want the testimonial, but really from a more superficial point of view, you want to make sure they're actually getting a good service.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely is definitely about working with them on the journey and touching base, making sure if you need to make any changes and sort of tweak the process. And that's really, really useful, and definitely see how that can be implemented really well. Thank you.
My pleasure.